This is the Weigh-In Podcast by Ben Watt Chestnut and the occasional pop-in Sebastian Romero. On this week's Weigh-In, we have for you, Cowboy Wrestling releases their schedule. There's been some talk about Bo Bassett, so we're going to go back on the Bassett talk. And nonetheless, whatever else is going around in NCAA wrestling. So with that being said, we've got all the happenings for you today. So, with that being said, that is this week's weigh-in. So, if we get right into this Cowboy wrestling, so for those who have not kind of got themselves on the Cowboy wrestling schedule, I mean, I understand you're not Cowboy wrestling fans, but you're wrestling fans on this Takedown Thursday. So, the best thing we can do right now on this is talk about the schedule. So November 7th, they're going to start off with Stanford Wrestling. And when they start off with Stanford, the next best thing I see on the schedule is December 14th, they got West Virginia. I think that's going to be a good dual meet, that West Virginia. What's going to be real interesting is right here, December 21st, Nebraska. They're going to face Nebraska. That's going to be really good. And then you've got some good, I mean, obviously you've got January 11th, you got Oklahoma on there. You know, we've got Missouri on there. I think this February 22nd, this Iowa, I think that's going to be real good. And I think February 1st, Iowa State, I think that's going to be good. So the Iowa matchups, I think, will be really good. The one that I think we really want to pencil in is that December 21st. You want to pencil in that Nebraska. Nebraska's got a good-looking team. So does Okie State. And I think that's going to be interesting. I think Stanford, I don't say it's going to be good, but also they got national duels between November 15th and the 16th. So we've got some good wrestling this season, and with all the things that have gone on and all the wrestling and all the transfers that have happened, it's a good-looking Iowa team. It's a good-looking Nebraska team. I think those are going to be close dual meets that might even come down to the last couple matches. I think that'll be really good. So I think that in terms of it, we're looking at an Oklahoma State University Cowboy wrestling team that might be able to. They're going to make a lot of noise this year. Going to be a lot of noise made this year, and I think that's a good thing in terms of that, because the noise that is going to be made I think it's going to be good noise. I really do. I really do think you're going to be making really good noise in terms of Cowboy wrestling, in terms of what we have to do, and in terms of what will be on what they have to do and what will be done. So we'll be following the Okie State Cowboys once again. I think the pod has really followed that David Taylor group very closely, and it's going to be another season of following them and, you know, anybody else, because I think it's a good Iowa. So we won't be we're going to be looking at everything, because NCAA wrestling is back. It is back. It is here. You know, and in most schools, they're wrestling off. We got, little under a month left to go. And before you know it, we'll be back with NCAA wrestling. So that's going to be really good. And I think that's going to be all, but the difference maker here is going to be how NCAA wrestling turns to make that comeback, as I so call it. I like that comeback that will so as much be said. I think that's a really good thing. I think that there's really good things no matter how you look at it. I think it's going to draw itself out really well in terms of a lot of stuff. So I think that'll be really good. And in terms of all in all, I think that'll be really well. And I do think that'll be a good thing for NCAA wrestling, that, the week one, when all these matchups clash, we're going to see how these teams look. Like right now, we're starting to get some schools are starting to wrestle off. I know we're starting to have what I like to call is the outdoor practice season, where they're doing a lot of outdoor practices, or doing, soon a lot of that fanfare is going to kick up. So I think it's going to be real interesting. But I think the Okie State Cowboys have a good chance at making some things happen this season, more than most. I think it's going to look really good. And I think I think this could be. I think this is another. I think this is going to be a tight team trophy race. Let me tell you, I think this year's going to be real tight, and I'm going to tell you why. Because you got Iowa that's got a good looking squad. Iowa squad is it's good looking. You got a stacked Nebraska squad that added AJ Ferrari. You got a that's point maker right there. And then if you don't, you got an Okie State with David Taylor that just is wrestling well. I don't care if they graduated guys. Some of your best coaches will turn nothing into something. And I don't mean like these wrestlers, like a wrestler being nothing, but take an average guy and make him amazing. There are a lot of wrestlers over the times and over the years that you can look at and say, whoa, okay, they made something out of him. I think that's one of the greatest ways to look at it. And I think that's great, with season coming up. That's a really good thing. So I know we said we would kind of dip on over to a little bit of what they talked about with Bo Bassett as we're kind of just moving through the segments really quick as we're touching and remembering certain stuff. So Bo Bassett has gone to Okie State. He's gone to Nebraska. Everybody thinks, due to his social media interactions, that they're heavily favoring he might be on his way to Nebraska. They think he might be going to Nebraska. He might. I'm not going to make a pick or not pick here. I think that there are some good choices in terms of that. I think there are really good choices. I know Nebraska's on the list. Well, this is Melvin Miller's list. He's got Nebraska. He's got Okie State. He's got Penn State. And he's got Virginia Tech on there. I'm not trying to discredit anybody on that list, but Virginia Tech is solid, but I really think it's between Okie State, Nebraska, and Penn State. And I say this because if he desires wanting to stay with Bo Bassett, I'm just off of my belief. I don't personally believe that Bo Bassett would end up at Virginia Tech. Now, it could still happen. We're a podcast. All we give is our opinion. But, by the looks of it, committing to Iowa, big school like that. Now, I'm not saying Virginia Tech ain't a big school. It is. But I'm saying, a team that is in line, that is in line to get a team title, that has had a team title in the last, decade. And I would like to say that, Virginia Tech has a solid squad. They look really good, but in terms of that, you say to yourself, where is that going to leave? Where is that going to leave Bo? And I say that because, he wants to put himself somewhere where he's going to do very well. You know what I mean? Like, you want to put yourself somewhere where you end up, I would say you end up like most get to do when they go to Penn State. You get to get either three or you get to get about three, maybe two or maybe three national titles. And then you, for 4 straight years, you got team titles. So I think that's a really good way to look at it. I think there's some good to there, but you look at the strength of these squads, and Penn State, they always got a strong squad. Nebraska's looking really good right now. They got some good people coming out of Nebraska. Okie State with David Taylor's he's starting up. He's starting his own Kale franchise, as I like to say. You think where Virginia Tech being an interesting choice. Now, this is just Melvin's list. This has nothing really to do with Bassett, but I kind of felt like Melvin and Bo, I kind of feel like they want to still be on the same team. I could be wrong about that. Then again, it is my opinion. But in some of the recruiting visits, now I get, you may take recruiting visits with teammates because you both have similar offers. That doesn't necessarily say you want to be on the same team together. But, I would just like to believe that Melvin and Bo want to be on the same team. They don't. Hey, that's just a wrong read on my end. But, you know, a lot of people believe that it's going to be Nebraska. And I would like to believe it is Okie State because we follow them so much. And, I mean, obviously, I know I wasn't one of the first ones to line up and say, hey, you're ready to have Bo. But I do like to say that I do think that it is a it is a really good thing that I think that if he goes to Nebraska or if he I kind of look at it this way. I just don't want him at Penn State. I would like to see somebody else get a team title. And I'm not saying I dislike Penn State at all. I think Cal Sampson has done a great thing, but it's time for something to see somebody else win. And I would like to see somebody else win. And sending Bassett to Penn State almost is going to more solidify the fact that Kale is going to get another title. And I say that because we all know Bo Bassett will very well become possibly, well, I don't want to say possibly, I think comfortably a two-time national champ, at least two times. I think he could win the national and then becoming, a couple-time All-American. So, I think, comfortably I could say I believe he'll get at least one national title. And then I think all the rest of the times, definitely All-American. I've now seen enough matches of Bo Bassett that there's something there. Now, this all depends on the type of performance he's able to perform and when he gets to college, But I do believe that he's going to at least have one really, really one national title, but more than that, I really think he's going to get two. I really think he's going to get two, but comfortably one, and I do think he's going to be an All-American. I have not seen that much of Melvin Miller to really say that, but I do believe, if you're alongside Bassett and you're learning the same things along him, I do think Melvin Miller can also get at least one. I would really like to say at least a couple time All-American. I'm not going to guarantee nothing one way and this way because at the end of the day, it is my opinion. And as you know, the Wayne always gives their opinion. So I really think there is some good coming from this. I think there will be some really good things, and there will be some things that are not so good coming out of this. So I think that that's interesting that everybody saying, "Oh, he followed a bunch of it." In terms, I would say Google it, but it was, hey, he followed a bunch of things that are related, that are linked, not really specifically linked to the university, but are related to Nebraska. Um, and they kind of said, well, oh, that means he might commit to Nebraska. That doesn't mean that. It's just that's where everybody's leaning. But I think I really think that David Taylor could land it. Now I'm not saying Nebraska can't, but the way that team is looking and how strong it is, I think that's a solid option, Nebraska. But then again, I'm not gonna. This is the way, and we kind of always weigh our opinion. But nonetheless, I think there are some solid, soluble, good choices here. With that being said, there are really great good choices. I think there are really good things coming out of being with Nebraska and being Okie State. Melvin Miller's Virginia Tech being on that list, that surprised me. But then again, you never know. There are some teams that will quietly build an interstellar squad and will shock us all. So with wrestling season basically at this point a month away, basically little less, little more. It's coming up fast. It's gonna be really good. Like I said last episode, I said, that means we're gonna start having good stuff. The reports are already coming in. So with the way some of these squads are gonna look, I'm already getting ready for when those first dual meets start hitting, ready to watch, ready to get the stuff down for you and say, what this year, what I want to get on is watching a little more of what is the best takedowns. What am I seeing a lot of? I challenge. I mean, I really say I challenge you guys to do the same. But we're gonna start looking at what takedowns do we see happening a lot of? That's what I want to know. What takedowns do we see coming out like crazy? And that's something that'll be really good really good. So see a lot of those takedowns. So that's something that I think will look really well is all those takedowns and what'll be the let's figure it out. Let's all comment what we think the most shot takedown will be after week 1, the first week of wrestling. What will be the most takedown? What will wrestlers be shooting the most of? Division 1 at least for D1. For Division 1, we'll keep track of that. We can't keep track of that in terms of high school or anything like that because that'll be too hard. But for high school, but for Division 1, we'll see what is the most shot takedown in week 1. That'll be interesting. But nonetheless, I think there's some good stuff. I think Okie State's got a good schedule. I think there's room here for Okie State to really to go undefeated as a team. To really those Iowa and that Nebraska dual meet's gonna be really good. I think it is. That Nebraska Okie State's gonna be really good. That's gonna be a good dual meet. And with it being inside that 21st, getting real close to Christmas, hopefully some of those schools are on break times. So you all can catch that dual meet. It's gonna be good. I really think Nebraska's got a strong squad this year, and then to come out and to get the rest of Okie State, it's gonna look good. I think Iowa's squad's gonna look good depending on how they show up. I think they got a lot of good going on there, and it's gonna look interesting. It's gonna look very interesting. I think this is a season where I think the clashing of Big Ten wrestling is gonna be huge. Huge. And I think the out of conference wrestling is going to be even bigger than that. The off conference wrestling is going to be bigger than that. We got Iowa versus Okie State. We got Okie State versus Nebraska. 2 teams that last year did very well at the NCAA tournament. If that doesn't tell you that's going to be a good dual meet, I don't know what does. I don't know what does. I think it's going to be a really, really good dual meet. And I hope that dual meet comes and does exactly what it needs to do because that is going to be amazing. Going to be that amazing thing for us to worry about. So that's an interesting one that I think I'm going to like very well is that Oklahoma State and Nebraska dual meet, which is going to look really good. That's going to be a good Nebraska dual meet. That's really good. So that'll be a good one to see. And I think there's going to be that. So all in all, I think it's going to be a good NCAA wrestling season. I think we're seeing a lot of good out of it. And to finally think that they said that with Bo Bassett that we're going to get a commit soon. So that's going to be exciting to see where Bassett lands because, the Iowa situation was unfortunate. I'm not going to say anybody in any way was wrongdoing in no way, shape, or form. Iowa was trying to sit there and say, "Hey, you're not gonna tell us how it's done. You're not gonna tell us how to run our team, this and that." And I get that, 100%. But then at the same time, and I think it's a different point of view from then. My point of view kind of changed. You're looking at Bassett, who's seeing all these other kids, be trained the RTC, and he's like, well, if that's a thing, why am I not training the RTC? So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, hey, I need to be in the RTC. I need to be in that room. Is there something that's smart there? And some schools are not big RTCs than others. There are a lot of schools that don't even really. They're Division 1, but they don't really hook up huge RTCs like regional training centers, like all the like Penn State and Ohio State and like some of these schools that really like Nebraska. Nebraska's a big one. They don't really put up a lot with the Olympic and all of that. And with being that the market for that is changing, we're starting to see private facilities that also train athletes come up. Those are real interesting. So now that we're starting to see some of those pop up, I think that's going to be really interesting. And I say that because we did a whole episode on the coach from Penn leaving to run one of those. So I think that's really interesting. And I do think that that's a real interesting one. That when we start to see a lot of those, is it going to take over? Probably. I think you're going to start to see it. Some of these coaches that know they can handle Olympic team and world team are going to start to get their facilities up and say, hey, why not get a couple D1 guys and say, hey, you're going to try for world team, you're going to try for Olympic. Why not? So I think that's a fairly interesting thing that's going to be going up. I think there's a lot of fairly interesting things coming out of this Division One season. A lot of good stuff. So I think that there's some good, there's some bad. I think there's a lot of good things with that. I think with being that is a thing. It's like I said, our young Olympic teams like that U20, that U17, they're performing very well, and I think that in terms of that, NCAA wrestling is about to get a lot better. Like it already is, and we're starting to see a lot of good stuff. And then, I know that I don't know if other podcasts are mentioning this as much as we are, but I'm excited for that women's championship. We drafted last year, and I get a lot of you might say, yeah, you're excited because you swept both of them, men's and women's. Yes, but I'm excited for the fact that, we get another championship. A lot of people like to call March Madness because of basketball, but if you're a wrestling fan, I call it the Wrestle Madness. You know, that's always what I've always said, the Wrestle Madness. They say March Madness. Well, I call it Madness. Madness, anything like that. I used to say stuff like that. Madness, Wrestle Madness. I like to say March Madness. I don't look at March Madness. I don't really look at it for the basketball, to be honest with you. I kind of look at it for the wrestling. Everybody's like, "Oh, did you do your March Madness bracket?" And when everybody asks me, I'm like, "No, I did my Wrestle Madness bracket. I did that wrestle bracket." And in terms of that, I'm glad that we have a women's championship now because we're going to draft for it, and hopefully, they can get the ESPN coverage for that. Get some airtime because obviously, I think wrestling needs more airtime. I think there's enough fans and there's enough of us backing wrestling that if we just got some TV time, the ratings would be good. I think it would be because I think I get we got platforms like Flow, which are really great things, but not everybody and everybody can't be like the weigh-in. The weigh-in's able to have a lot of platforms. Everybody's not able to buy a bunch of platforms. And with that being said, it's nice to say you got a dual meet on ESPN, and the last dual meet that was televised on ESPN, it had good numbers. It had high numbers, very high numbers. I thought there was a report at the time that said the numbers looked really good. And I think that they need to build off of that and letting wrestling have more of an upstanding platform so that when we get our platform under Division One wrestling, we can then start taking, some of those matches a night a week and start putting the women's on there. So, you show a men's and then you show a women's and then you do the men's right after. Like, come on, let's get a good lineup here of some wrestling. And if ESPN doesn't do it, I think there's enough. We got Fox, we got NBC. Somebody's gotta give us some space here so we can have our wrestling, on some TV here. And you can't forget. I know how many may feel about Flow, and I don't care about all that. Go Google it if you want to really hear more on that, because I'm not here to speak to no shade, but I'm here to say they've done a great thing in getting a huge platform for wrestling and being able to have a lot of dual meets, a lot of those matches up there, and to be able to see a lot of those and have a lot of those and to be able to do that, and they're very timely. They post their schedule like these are the matches we're gonna have this season, and that's a really good thing. And I like that they do that. So the Flow's doing a great thing, and I think in terms of that, I like that. But do me this. Look. Just hear me out. ESPN, get me a good dual meet. I would like to see Oklahoma, Okie, and Nebraska. Hear me out on this. Our commentators, Jordan Burroughs, Daniel Cormier. Come on. Tell me, Shane Sparks. Let's get Shane Sparks on there. Tell me that ain't going to be a good broadcast. Tell me that ain't going to be a good broadcast. That's going to be a good First of all, if you don't get the back and forth between Daniel Cormier and Jordan Burroughs, because that's both their schools, tell me that would, think about that. That'd be a good broadcast. That'd be a really good broadcast. That'd be a good broadcast now. It's not just me. That'd be a really good broadcast to have Daniel Cormier, Jordan Burroughs, Okie State versus Nebraska, ESPN, on ESPN, and then you add Shane Sparks. Right? That'd be a good dual meet. That would be a good. He's hysterical when he commentates wrestling. I like Daniel Cormier when he commentates wrestling. He's very hysterical. If you look at it, okay, let me give you a match that's really good. Many of you have probably already seen it. If you have not, Wyatt Anderson, Gable Stevenson. Listen to the way Daniel Cormier is. The way he sounds, the way Daniel Cormier gets excited in all these matches. You can't replicate that anywhere else. You just can't. That's why I always say I'd like to have Daniel Cormier in a really good dual meet. Even if you do Daniel Cormier and Jordan Burroughs for Iowa Penn State this year, I'm happy with that. Daniel Cormier, and when you put him with Jordan Burroughs on a stand to be a commentator, the stuff is legendary. It's legendary. Daniel Cormier has been doing the Nationals for a long time, and the type of excitement you get out of Daniel Cormier, you can't make that up. You can't replicate that. You generally cannot replicate the Daniel Cormier that we get that comes out of the NCAA matches. When you just can't replicate that. And it's the same thing when he commentates UFC, you can't replicate that. You just can't. Some people are built to be commentators, and you can tell because the way they get excited. That's what you can say about Daniel Cormier. That's what you can say about Daniel Cormier. So, with that being said, we're drawing to the end of yet another epi. This was just a short one for you, getting out and really putting another one out there for you guys, and just letting you know that this is yet another weigh-in epi for you. I'm trying to keep these going as wrestling season is getting really close, and we're almost drawing into now. We're in October. So in less than 2 months, we would have completed our goal of 2 videos a week every month on this weigh-in, which is really good. And the growth has been real from that. I'm so proud of the way the channel has just really had really good growth from that. And I say that because we went from last year having to about maybe 200-300 views out of the whole year to this year to now getting up to really close to being at about 1,400 like total views for the whole year, which is crazy, crazy to me, but it's really good. And in terms of that, I'm very proud of the interactions and all of that. And so with that being said, this is yet another epi of the way. And like, comment, subscribe, share, please. You know, y'all, I keep these epis going for you for y'all, and I'm gonna keep doing that. So with that being said, this is the Weigh-In Podcast by Benoit Chestnut and the occasional pop-in Sebastian Romero. This is yet another epi of the Weigh-In. Weigh-In out.